Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your host for today, Mike Bailey. What we want to talk about today is some of the other things that you might do around the yard this time, around your garden in particular, this time of year. I mean, this is still early April for me when I'm recording this. In fact, it's the 6th of April. It's a beautiful day outside, but we had a real heavy frost last night, and I imagine that most of you did too on this particular day. So what I want to remind you of is that please don't get too far ahead of the season. Typically, we don't have our last frost up here in the Erie area probably until the first or second week of May. And some of you in some of the outlying areas, it may even be later than that. So you have to kind of keep that in mind, even though you're very tempted on days like this to get out there and maybe put some things in the ground. The other thing I want to mention is that, there's some microclimates around, okay? I mean, I know even in my yard, okay, I live into this kind of the side of a hill. And where my garden is, it's just on the lower part of the property. And I know the temperature is 4, 5, 6 degrees cooler down there than it is up near my house, especially during the nighttime. So, and I have to kind of take that into consideration. So what can you do this time of year? If you hadn't completed it last year, you want to get out there and clean up the garden a little bit better. I'm as guilty as everybody else. I tried to get things done last year, but, ran into problems with, all the typical things of shortening days and rain and snow and other activities. So I'm going to do that this afternoon. I'm going to get out in my garden and kind of clean it up a little bit better. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare some of the garden beds. Now I have several raised beds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to turn that soil over in some of those raised beds, and kind of in preparation for the planting of some cool weather crops, which I can actually put in here. Now, I mean, peas can go in, and maybe I'll get some onion sets in, okay, very, very soon here, even though it is only the, like I said, the 6th of April, and I'm going to have some cooler temperatures, but those things will tolerate nice cool weather. But when I go out to turn that soil over, when I put that garden fork into that ground and turn that over, if I find out that this soil is still really wet, if I can take a handful of that and kind of squeeze it into a firm ball and it kind of stays that way, that's telling me it's too wet. Don't do it. If it doesn't fall apart easily, you're going to end up with clumpy soil, and that clumpy soil is going to be a problem for you for several months down the road. It's going to make it very difficult for you to plant. So don't work the soil when it's too wet. It also might be a good time to add some organic material as you're turning the soil, or even putting some organic material on the top. That organic material is going to be your best slow release fertilizer as you go throughout the gardening season, because all that biological activity that takes place in that soil, all those bugs and beetles and worms and bacteria and fungus in particular, that are involved with breaking that down. They make those minerals in that organic material available to your plants that you're planting. And, that's what's going to keep them nice and healthy. It'll be a nice, slow release fertilizer. So take care of your soil. It's so very, very important. And what about adding lime to your garden? Well, I know some people just do that routinely. I don't think I've ever done it. But I would, if you want to add some lime, keep in mind the vegetables like a slightly acidic garden soils between the pH of 6.5 and 7 for the most part. So be careful about adding that lime and tying up the minerals in your soil and keeping them from being absorbed by the plants. What you can do is you can get a soil test kit from the Erie County Extension Office, from the Erie County Conservation District Office up here in the Erie area, and they might have them in your area also at some of the garden stores. And that'll give you a real good picture of what not only the pH but also the nutrient content of some of that of your soil in your garden. And that's kind of a nice thing to do every once in a while. You certainly don't have to do it every year, but to get some kind of a baseline for yourself as to see how you're doing it, it might be very helpful. Also, the area around your garden, if you got some brush, if you got some high grasses, clean that out, cut it down, because you'll have some pests that are in there. You'll have some diseases that are being harbored in there, okay, and some insects that have laid eggs, etc., that you really don't want in your garden. So take some time to kind of clean that out. The other thing is that if you have any fruit trees in your yard, you might want to take the time now, okay, to trim those trees up if you haven't already done so. I'm still trimming mine. Okay, some people might say, well, it's too late. Well, you get to it when you get to it is what it comes down to, okay? And the trees will do fine. And the other people say, well, I don't know how to do it. Well, yes, you do. Don't underestimate your abilities. It's not difficult. I just want you to keep a couple things in mind. Number one, you don't cut off more than 1/3 of the crown or the vegetative growth or those branches of that tree in any one year. Cutting off 1/3 is really difficult to do on a tree of any particular size. The other thing is that what your objective is to open that tree up so that sunlight gets to all the branches. You don't want a lot of vegetative growth on that tree. You want to open it up a little bit so that the sun can actually get to the fruit, okay, and kind of dry things out a little bit, dry the leaves out so you don't harbor any funguses that are in there. So keep your pests and diseases at a minimum if you do that. The other thing is you want to keep it decent looking, okay, and that's part of the idea of trimming, okay, to cut the branches in a manner that's it makes the tree attractive, okay, as you're looking at it. Don't be worried about what others think about how you trim. I did quite a bit of trimming at the Emmaus Garden, in fact, over this past weekend and in past week, and I don't know whether I exceeded the 1/3 rule or not, but I came awful close because those trees had gotten big, and I needed to trim them down because they were getting way oversized. So I trimmed off a lot. So and the people that I was with, okay, were, I think, kind of surprised how much I took off. Also, a good time to, if you haven't already, spray them with some horticultural oil. And that'll keep some of those overwintering insects and fungal things and scales that are on those trees, okay, under control as you move forward. And also put together some kind of a plan for how you're going to control pests. Very difficult to grow fruit trees without some kind of a pest control, disease control program. So research it a little bit. So thank you for listening. I ran a little bit long. Okay, hope to have you here next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.